How you doing, everybody? Hey, football fan, how's it going? Brian, good afternoon. Neighbor, how's it going? Oh boy, been to the mall today. It's- One good thing about the mall is that I get to sit and while my wife is off shopping, they have a seat for me that I can go and hide out in. Oh boy. Um ah we've had sort of we get banged around by the bad weather lately. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. I mean, we had like a bad storm and then it went away, and today's been pretty good. We'll see. Hi, Russell. Waiting on two watches from Studio Underdog. I like the watermelon one that they have. Next grill purchase will be a harboring to Felix. I tell you, I would love to learn how to say that word. Funda Royat, something like that. I love those things. Hey, then Elaine. Oh boy, you got your things lined up. Hi, it's Caesar. How's it going? Dean, good to see you. Okie doke. Um, what I was doing while after I got the idea, by the way, this is the idea was sent to me by Rancher by Clyde, and I thought, that's a good idea. And I, I get this thing from Watch Time magazine, and they have something new coming up, and there's sometimes there's some really new things that I really like. Other times it's that's new, so then I thought, well, let's see what we've got new that came out in 2023. Um, Caesar still trying to get a Streamliner. Oh God, those are nice. Didn't they sell out, Caesar? Yeah, boy, I love those watches. Those are nice ones. The new VC retrograde moon. That's another nice one. Yeah, both of those are really nice. What I was doing, I thought I'll go take a closer look at what's going on with the GPHG, and the ones who are in the nominations now, and I found three that looked more interesting than I realized. I think two of them I had down for my vote for the good watch. One that I had was Ferdinand Bertha. He's got uh, a cylindrical hairspring. I have no idea how it works. He explained it I guess he explained it to either a physicist or a watchmaker in the write up about it. But it sounded really interesting. The problem with his watches for me is not anything horologically. I just can't afford those things. These things are way up there. But it's good to see interesting concepts like that come out. For the last week, I've been trying to get this blasted hairspring and balance wheel back into a movement, and been working on that. So I've got I got my sort of really into hairsprings, and so a cylindrical one. There were certain things with constant force that Ferdinand Berthold was addressing. I thought that's very interesting, horologically interesting. Um, the other one was a Parmigiani minute rattrapant. And what does somebody need a minute rattrapant for? I guess, it sounds like, oh, here we go. Here's a minute egg timer for you. but I'm not sure since I don't, I'm not much into chronographs, and the only Rattrapant I have is a mono Rattrapant from I think early 1940s or late 1930s from Beauvais, and it's a cool thing. It's sort of the answers the Zen question, a mono Rattrapant of what's the sound of one hand clapping. But this new one that Parmigiani has, it just sounds like a really interesting kind of setup that they have. Now, the final one, and again, it's just something very expensive, out of my budget. The final one I found that I really liked was by Ruta Silva, and I'm still trying to figure. And again, here's another one. If you want to read about it, it's in the write up in the Grand Prix. Is a toothed balance wheel that on the vertical somehow outwits the turn of the earth or something. I don't know, but it's really interesting. A toothed balance wheel. If you look at a picture of it, it's not called a tooth balance. Anyway, it's the only watch there by Ruta Silva. I think it is anyway, under one of the either complicated or mechanical exceptional. Really interesting though. I mean, he's got, what do you do? How does that work? And he explains it. And it doesn't work like a resonance. That's what I thought at first, because you see these two wheels next to each other and they're toothed. And I thought, well, they're gears of some sort, but they're not. They're balance wheels. That's something that would be, fun to have and fun to find out more about. Okay. Okay, here's somebody with this muscle, and it's in acrylic. Is it Nikos? Is that right? I can't read acrylic, but that's okay. Got a big muscle next to him. Richard Dong, how you doing, Richard? I think the Kadoki 3, yes, I agree. The Kadoki 3 would be another one. I really like that with the 3 tracks for the what is it, is it a second hour hand or something like that? I'm not sure what it is, but it's really neat. I like that a lot. The Streamliner seems to be sold out, but I talked to a few people at Moser, and there is a non-zero chance of getting one. They are already on C24 for 6K. Wow, that's not bad. Really? I mean, if you're talking about that butterscotch or salmon colored, that's a honey. Parmigiani Minute Rattrapant might be a good to stop me from procrastinating. There you go. I never ever pay over retail. Me neither. I try not to pay retail, as a matter of fact. Hey, Goldfinger, good to see you. Kotov kat means cat, and neck means dog. Cats and dogs, like them both. 3-hour tracks, yeah. Oh, it's an hour tracks. That's a very cool watch. Hey, Junior. Hi, Mark. Football fan. I like the Arnold and Son perpetual moon phase, 38 millimeter. While I was trying to learn whether it had a silicone hairspring, they sold last one of the 18 pieces. Now, what do you do with $30,000? Come to me. I'll tell you what you can do with it. Lots of things. Man, if I had $30,000 to blow on a watch, probably I might even, there may be more than one watch I'd probably get. I've got to sell some watches. I got too many anyway. Okay. What about exceptional horology that you can get today under 70K? Yeah, that's a good question, Richard. It really is. Yeah, what can you get? That was another thing I was trying to find out, and the answer is I didn't see anything. if there was something that was some really interesting horology under 10,000, I guess one of the problems is that the same problem they ran into with the double hairsprings is that it was such an engineering hassle that they couldn't afford to keep putting them out. Um, really great idea, horological concept, and everything else, but they, for some reason, they said they were harder to do than a tourbillon, which I thought was sort of interesting. You know, that was another thing that Berthold, not Berthold, but Ruta Silva said about these tooth balances that he has. They say something, they compare them, they're much more accurate than a tourbillon, or it solved the problem that the tourbillon didn't. So there's some things there. But I think one of the questions, especially for collectors, is that how do you get your mitts on one if you can't afford it? I mean, there's some people can afford 70, they can afford $1 million for a watch. But not a lot of us can. So is really not a bad question. How do you do it though? Is it possible? There probably is. Just figure out what it is. Goldfinger, just waiting for confirmation on a Simon Brett. Oh, good. Tell me, I looked at that and I know the designer that was designed by Mathieu Legre. I didn't really look into the horology of it. I looked at the dial and how it was done and so forth, but I'd be very interesting to hear more about that on the Goldfinger. Okay, Sam's dad. Let's see. I like the new Oris Aquas 400 meter a lot, but it's huge. Okay. By and large, when it comes to Oris, some about them I like. I mean, it's really funny. There are a lot of watches I never had. I probably have no great desire to run out and get one, but I like them. And Oris is one of them. It's a funny kind of thing. It's one of those watches I think that's well priced for what you get. You should make a video building a watch collection for different budgets. Oh, that's a good idea, Caesar. I was. We'll have low budget or frugal budget, medium budget, and the sky's the limit. That's not a bad idea. I certainly could. The hardest part would be the low and the middle. The higher one would be very easy because there's so many ones I like that are just out of hand. This is another thing. Some of the things that have been done it used to be somebody come out with something new and you could usually afford it. I mean, something that when I say you could afford it, it wouldn't cost you more than your house. And that seems to be getting less and less possible because I think what's happening, a lot of people around the world, this is another thing too. It used to be certain little clubby groups that understood the horology of especially some of the higher horology, and didn't sell very many watches, but they didn't have to because they were so expensive that only a few people could afford them. Well, now there seems to be a much larger market of people who have that kind of money that they can afford it. Hey, Killer Audiophile. I wonder if Simon will release other models in the next few years. I would guess so. I mean, here's a guy who comes out with one and it makes the nominations, and I think that's great. I haven't seen his work before, but he may have a history of it that would be interesting to find out about. Oh, what watch I got on today? I have on my Van Cleef & Arpels Air DC at Ur Dayer. Had this on this morning. We were talking about watches you'd never sell. and this is one of them that I have. I really like it. The thing is that some watches, like my Chanel Monsieur, uh, that is visiting a spa somewhere in Switzerland right now, uh, being cared for by Chanel until they get it back to me. That watch is just fantastic watch, and with um, what's his name, Romain Gautier's hand in there. I wonder what how they're where it's going exactly, and what they're going to be doing with it. And very, it's going to be gone for 6 months. And the reason I don't mind that is in 6 months I'll be getting a really nice watch that I don't have to pay for because it's already, well, I will, whatever the service charge is going to be. Maybe limit the number of watches to 3. It will make the no limit very, very hard. Yeah, I I wish we could. This is the thing about watch collection, though. I mean, it's like there's so many watches that I would really, really like to have, and maybe that's a question: is that do I really want it for the moment, and I'd play with it for a while, and then it'd be a case queen, or it'd be something I'd like to wear all the time, or wear every day. When I had my overseas, somehow I decided that this was going to be my everyday watch, and I'd wear it to work. And the reason I got it in the first place because the other watches I got were I had a Patek Philippe Calatrava, and I was told don't wear those to work; those are too delicate, so I didn't. And then I got a Vacheron Constantin 1972. In fact, I wish I'd gotten all 3 models of it, but that's another story, and I'm glad I didn't now. But that was another watch that just wouldn't be good for work because too delicate. Whereas the overseas, and this is the OS1, had was a pretty tough watch. The thing was great, and I wore it all the time. But other watches in my collection, I sort of wear them, but not to work and not every day. And so at least I got into my head. I think it's important to have watches you enjoy wearing. And there's a certain point where if you don't enjoy wearing it, maybe that's the time to sell it. Not because there's anything with the watch, but it's just something you don't wear. Oh, question: does this have 3 lugs? No, it's got one. This is more like I'm not sure what it's called. It's sort of like it's something to hold the bar on, and you I don't know how you take a thing apart. Oh, I know. Maybe I think it has like screws here and here, and you take them out, and then this just slides off of the bar. Hi, dog and cat. Van Cleef is flawless these years. Yeah, yeah, they are flawless. They're wonderful watches. The thing is that there's what Van Cleef and Arpels does is the same thing that Cartier has done. Cartier, besides buying a big hunk of FP Journe, also Hermes buying a big percent of Vasseur, is that they take the horology seriously. I think a lot of these other fashion brands don't. I mean, it's sort of like, well, we'll pop a Solita in there and put our logo on the front, and that will be our fashion watch. But like Cartier not Cartier, but Chanel bought uh, with Tudor bought a movement factory, Kinesi, and those kinds of things. Chanel also bought a piece of FP Journe and a piece of um, Romain Gauthier. The reason they bought into Gauthier is because Gauthier has, not only does he make the movements, but he makes all of the parts. And so you can, I think the deal that Chanel has with Gauthier is that they have their guys doing stuff and making watches for Chanel, and then they can have access to the parts made by Romain Gauthier. And so when I looked at the back of my Chanel, there they are. And so it's that boy, and then it has a jumping hour and a retrograde minutes on it. That's a lot of fun. This one is too. This is the only one I know of with dual jumping hours and a retrograde minutes. So, you get watches. I think can be interesting other ways. Other ones that I have, like the Urban Jurgensen, very simple and plain and so on and so forth. But who was it? Daryl. Derek Derek Pratt. I always forget his name. Derek Pratt did the design of the. I mean, he was one of the guys who worked on the movement, the P4, and the new watches that Voet Lannon is coming out with under um, the Urban Jurgensen name that he bought also has the P4. So those kinds of things I think are sort of fun to know about too. I always ask myself, if I gave into the moment, I'd have a whole lot of watches and be homeless. Yeah, I know. Happy and homeless. Oh boy, there's you ah no nothing to take care of. I like living in a packing box with all my watches. I could go for that. I respect Seiko? Yeah, I do respect. Have a lot of respect for Seiko. Um, there's the thing about Seiko. Seiko has sort of two sides that I see to it. On the one hand, you have these like super engineers and very engineer heavy kind of thing with let's put together a really great movement, and they can do it. And then but there's something about their watches that are, I don't know what it is. They have some neat things. Here's Let me give you an example. I really like the Soprod A10. Okay, the interesting thing about it is that the A10 is really was designed by Seiko. I think as four in movements that they had, something like that. And man, is it a great movement. But the watches themselves, I feel like I'm getting something that comes out of a very efficient factory. That's just the sense that I have. So I do respect Seiko, but I have a funny feeling about them, and I don't know why. I have a Seiko 5. I love my Seiko 5 uh, for a lot of reasons, but I like my Soprod 810 more because of the Seiko design used in the movement of it. It's a complex question, and I think that probably for the bang for the buck, it's hard to beat Seiko in a lot of things. Eric, good morning. Good morning. You must be from down under, right? Yes, you are. Eric, you're from Australia, I think. Tisat not tissue Google. Okay. Okay, let's see what you got to say. All right, still looking to work for a work watch. An automatic day date is in mind. Wearing a day date automatic now. So many wonderful timepieces to choose from. That's true. the I the way I look at it, there's more and more that I can't afford too. Okay, let's see. Um, Football fan, is there a regulator you would buy today? Yeah, if I could afford it. There's a lot of regulators. Let me see who's got some interesting regulators. Laurent Ferrier would be number one. I really like his regulator. Um, Maurice, no, Maurice, what's his name? Maurice. I want to say Moritz Grossman, but it's not him. It's Maurice Lacroix. Maurice Lacroix. They've got a bunch of interesting ones. Also too, I think in the if you look in the Challenger and in fact, I think it's in the Challenger. There is a really interesting one by Louis Vuitton. I think it's Louis Vuitton, and our Etad. Maybe it's Etad who did. I forgot. There's this one that looks like sort of a monster. That's really neat. That is a regulator. The other thing about regulators is that they're two different kind. In watchmaking school, I know that some students for their final project they'll take an ETA 6498, and then they'll move the hour hand up to 12 o'clock, and then they have the hours, and then they leave the minute hand where it is, and then the second hand down at the bottom, and they'll make a regulator that way. And I think a lot of regulators, they take an existing movement and then they move the hour hand somewhere, usually to 12 o'clock. And now, on the other hand, there are some movements that are specifically built to be regulators. In other words, they're designed from the get go with the hours, minutes, and seconds set up. So lots of interesting regulators out there. Let's see. Seiko does lots of things beside watches. That's true. I own the first watch with vertical auto winding, and it's Seiko. Vertical auto winding. Ah, that sounds interesting. Yes, different editions. Caesar now with Stover dial and the bezel with diamonds. Whew. Australia. Okay, Eric, I thought I recognized you. So it's morning there. How's tomorrow like? This is Eric is our voice of tomorrow. What's the future hold, Eric? What will we see tomorrow that we don't see today? Hey, Richard. I have a 5235 Paddock. It's nice, but I dropped it and it's in the shop now. Yeah, that'll happen sometimes. I'm still banging away trying to get this this poor hairspring and balance wheel I've been working with. That thing fell everywhere, and I'm still plugging away trying to get the thing set up, and it's just hard. But I tell you, I tried setting up resonance. This is something that if they're for your own, you can do your own innovations. I got this table. Dominic had it made for me. He knows metalwork. Anyway, I have these two movements I put there, and I'm trying to get I had them cut the base plate back so I could get these close enough for to create resonance. Well, I put a couple up there to try it, and I think I may have already accomplished it with only one of them with the cutback base to it. I think they may have been close enough so that they entered into resonance already. So I'm like I can hardly wait till I get the other one done and I can see what else is going on. Laurent Ferrier uses silicone hairspray. Ha 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 ha. I don't think so, does he, Caesar? I don't believe that. What he does though, he has his COSC stuff done, but it's not COSC. It's done at Baie-Saint-Côme in France, across the border, about 90 miles north of Geneva. And so that's sort of an interesting thing. I would love to send one of the Reek watches to Baie-Saint-Côme to have them do the regulation on it, to test it for chronometer value, like I did with my first one, which comes out COSC plus. What they have is that they have what Baie-Saint-Côme has is that they have their stamp or punch that they put on the movement. That's a serpent's head. I don't know why. I just think that, wow, that'd be fun to have a watch with a serpent's head on the movement. Maybe that's why Laurent Perrier does it. Remember you mentioning a website we can choose a time piece by movement. Yeah. It's called watchbase.com. WATCHBASE.com. Reason I spelt out watch base, that stupid autocorrect always goes to calls it watch case. And if I'm not paying attention, I won't change it back, but it's watchbase.com. You can find the movement, and then you can find the watch that it goes with. Sometimes they'll surprise you. I was looking at some Breitlings the other day, and a lot of them have ETA movements. Not so or Solita, both of them. It's not that they have those; it's how they name their movements that sound like, oh, it's a B-17, I think was what it was, and turns out to be an ETA 2498 or something like that. So be careful on that one. What do you think about the small watch companies turning old pocket watches into wristwatches? I think it's cool. I mean, they have. I know that I think we talked about this morning. Some Murphy. Roland Murphy does that, I think, with a lot of old Hamiltons, and a lot of his watches. He tells you they are too. I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna turn these Hamiltons in and call them in house or something. He says this is, he's using it on purpose. I think it's really a cool thing. I think I already showed everybody this morning. I did the same thing, but I took a key wound movement, put it into a wristwatch, and broke it. So that's my watchmaking skills are dubious at best. Does a resonance work without a clutch piece like a Armin Strom's? Yeah, works fine with that. Take a look. The physics of it, you can find on these really great internet little videos they have. There's all kinds of things with how the concept of resonance works. And I think that's the most important part. Now, as far as Armin Strom's is concerned, I'm not sure what role the clutch plays. But resonance in and of itself, I don't know. I don't see it involving a clutch. Now, that doesn't mean the resonance that I can get with a little brass table is the kind of thing you can put into a watch. But it's just to test the concept. It's something to have fun with in watch collection. Hi, Eric. Vortic watches takes pocket watch movements and cases them in titanium wristwatches. Cool. Vortic. Belina, 123. Hi, how's it going? It's going well. And yourself? Brian, I didn't know that that was a table. I thought it was the base. It is. This is funny. It turns out to be a table. One of the things that I talked about, I said, well, what I need is some way of, have the dial under here, the main part will be up here and with the back of the movement showing. So I wanted to hold for two reasons. One, just the post from the that you put the different hands on. They gotta you don't want them up against solid brass. And then at the same time, I thought, well, you could look at the movement and see if they stay in sync. Um, Now, I guess you don't need the legs like this, but the main part of it is so that the base of the movements are touching this brass base, so that the two spinning wheels can gain resonance from it. And then anyway, it's something that is it's a fun thing to do. Um, I think it's important. Any hobby you have, if you stop having fun, maybe it's not the it's also much cheaper. Making your own watches and stuff, great great fun. Um, Speaking of which, I'm working on my Breguet watch, but I got the Breguet hands and the Breguet uh, fonts on it, and it's a great dial that they sent me. You can see it; it's really well done, and it's got a nice sort of lacquer finish to it. I can't get the second hand in. that's that's always my bugaboo. So I've got two major watchmaking bugaboos. One is putting on second hands, and the other one is putting hairsprings back in, or the whole movement. But is it fun? Yeah, yeah. You're playing around with the stuff and thinking about stuff and thinking of new vocabularies, why it doesn't work. Hey, killer audiophile. I hope Marco Lang can come up with more pieces in the under 20 range. I do too. I really do. I would really like that. He's probably, I think, well, if there were a top five of living watchmakers, he would be among them. Definitely. Hey, Tim, good to see you. Laurent Ferrier uses silicon escapement. Oh, escapement. Escapement I don't have a problem with, and I'll tell you why, Caesar. The escapement, you can do exactly the same thing with a silicon escapement as you can a metal escapement, except they do it for one reason, one primary reason, and that's for to cut down on magnetization. I think is how you call it. Okay, so that's the escapement. On the other hand, the hairspring has all of the advantages, and I don't want to name them all, except for one thing: you can't adjust it. I can go in with my toothpick and adjust any of these movements. I think I had a little video. I had one. It went from it was 132 over to something like 3, and that was just because I could adjust the hairspring by moving the regulator. So it's a kind of thing that sort of harks back to the same kind of problems that Abraham Breguet worked with. On the other hand, if you had silicon, you don't have to worry about that. The old silicon will take care of everything as long as you don't try to mess with it. Otherwise, it'll brittle and bye bye hairspray. So I think it's also the reason too that the Geneva Seal. Now, the Geneva Seal people may not put up with it. They may say no silicon, period, because they did with Patek Philippe when they started putting in their silicon hairsprings. That's why they don't have a Geneva Seal anymore. They got their own seal, the PP seal. I don't know. There's a lot of really great Patek Philippe's movements that were made in, I don't know, I guess the early 2000s before they started doing that I really like. And the ones I like, actually, they took off the market, the gondolas. Those are my favorite. Aren't you interviewing Edward from Mosun? I already done that. I already had a video on that. I'm going to be talking on the 21st. I'm going to be going back to FP Jorn. I'll be talking to William. Trying to think William's last name, and it escapes me. But he's been with FP Jorn for as long as I have got watches from him. He knows all kinds of stuff. I was going to New York, and I asked him if he was going to be around, and he was going to Japan, and so we scheduled a meeting for the 21st. I'll see if that's still on. I hope it is. That'll be an interview. But I did do an interview with Moser, with Edward Malin. This was right before they closed down New York for the pandemic. So. Hi, Al29. How you doing? Thoughts of Philippe Poulenc finishing ETA movements. You know, if somebody says, okay, I took this ETA movement, totally, sort of undid it and took all of the bridges and plates out, and I refinished them, and now they look really cool. And I did it with an ETA 6498 or 2490, or one of those. That's great, and that's fine. I think it's really admirable. The only thing I don't like is when somebody says, "Wow, this is all in house. We did it all ourselves," and then but it was really one of the basics of somebody else's movement. Now, I will say my tourbillon has two genuine Siegel 6498 clones, so I can say that, and that's my resonance watch. Philippe Poulenc, his stuff, he's real talented, very talented, but I think his talent lies more in a designer than a watchmaker. But I'd be very interested to see his stuff develop. See, most of these others, they went the other way. I mean, your top-notch guys, they started off doing restoration, like F.P. Jorn and Michel Parmigiani. They were doing restoration. I think Kari Voutilanen was too. So if you're doing restoration, you're fixing an old watch. And so you're getting to know all of the movements and the guts of the watch. Design, on the other hand, is coming from a very different direction. And then going from design into mechanics is one thing. Coming out of mechanical into design is a whole other trip. That's something else that's just as hard. But some of, Voutilanen, a lot of his stuff is not for the movement, but rather for the winning watch prizes for the design more than the movements. You got that too. Hi, Nate Dog. Oh, you saw the interview. I was hoping you're talking to Edward again and ask him about the Streamliner. Okay. Net Dog, what's up? Let's see. Just got your newest key. Oh, what'd you get? Gerald Genta by Retro. Oh, how cool. In rose gold and blue tantalum. Wow. Wow, Nate. That sounds like a great watch. When you say the resonance, are you referring to your Jorn? Well, I'm referring to my Jorn, my FP Jorn, but I'm also referring to my project, my Jorn, my resonance project. I'm trying to create that. So, Eric, easy choice, Lee. What is Lee up to? Oh, there it is, Lee's. Bill or football? Is football on today? That's on tomorrow. Man, I tell you that I started watching the game that they had last week, or a couple days ago, and the Lions versus Kansas City. According to all of the experts, the wrong team won. I like those kind of games, unless it's my team that was supposed to win and they don't. Killer audiophile. Take a look at there's a big discussion of it, I guess, or more of a discussion on our watchmaker site called Pretentious Watchmakers. The Genta has a GP base, Girard-Perregaux base, and then a Genta 2 patent modular added. That's a great watch. Boy, I tell you that, Nate, I think you really landed on a good one. Democro 911, meaning to thank you for coming on YouTube and just sharing. Oh, okay. Hey, Killer Audiophile, for a second there, I thought you were saying that your Jorn was running on a Seagull. I wish. No, one thing I found out about, somebody pointed out, and they're right. I had a picture of my the back of my watch on High Horology Lounge today, and I have a brass plates on it. And he said, "Wait a minute, didn't FP Journe put use gold plates and bridges on all of his movements?" He says, "Yeah, but that didn't start until 2005, and mine was from 2002. So I have the brass plates. It's one of the few cases where the watches with the brass plates, because they didn't make that many, are far more valuable than the ones with gold plates. It's very strange. But my CS has gold, so I like to balance them out." And by the way, both were bought before the prices went to the moon. Let me emphasize that. How did tech at a university? You did tech. I did in and out of a university. I taught courses in internet programming, basically. But at one time, I took there was some guy that this Japanese educational robot. All right. And it's this little robot they had, and then it had a little thing from it, and an old keypad, and you key into the keypad, and the old robot would, then you unplug it, and the robot would go and do its tricks. And so so I thought, wow, maybe I can do that with a computer. I can figure out the code from the robot. So I got a 2x4 and 8 flashlights, all right. And then I ran wires into the port that was on the back, I think, of a Commodore 64. And then I was able to get the binary code out. And so each time something went in, those lights would light up. And if there was a positive, it would turn on. If there was nothing, it would stay. And so I could read the binary code. Well, it turned out to be only a 4-bit processor. So it wasn't that hard at all, because there were just like 4-digit binary numbers. So I'd take the numbers, then do that, and then turn those into went from binary to hexadecimal, and then into decimal, and then into something, and then I sort of redid it. And so that was my sort of hardware part of it. But I had a thing too. I had a gig going that I was putting in these Monster Macs into Mac computers. It was a chip and you had to connect all of these things together, otherwise you'd smoke the guy's Mac. And I had a special screwdriver and stuff like that. But that wasn't part of my physics class in college. That was another one where things went boom in the night. Nate Dog, under 10K. You got a good buy, Nate. I think it sounds like a fabulous deal you got. Hey, Richard, um, Web3, okay. Commodore 64. Now we used data input cards back then. Yeah, that's when I started. Actually, I started doing actual programming in 1966 with cards, and most of it was the advanced stuff we had was Fortran too, I think. Yeah, those were the days. Anyway, oh my God, we're way out of time. Sorry, guys, I went way over. Anyhow, thank you for taking up part of your afternoon and your evening. And we sort of got off track, and I apologize for that. But I am always like to see your comments and your. This is fun. All right, last ones. Let me see. Programming on an Atari 800. I did assembly in C in class. I wrote an assembler. I wrote two assemblers. I wrote a digital assembler, and then I wrote one in hexadecimal, and then opcode. I love assembly language. Assembly language, something about it that was so much fun. Anyway, off I go. Take care. Have a great rest of your week, and I hope to see you all next week.